Hi everyone. Welcome back to the Technique Matters Roundtable, and today we are once again joined with myself, Clinton, and JJ and Adam to talk about a topic which you guys have voted for, and this is like towards the end of the questions that we have asked you to see which one we want you want us to discuss about. Today's topic is how to overcome anxiety and overthinking in training. So I believe this is one of the common issues, not exactly an issue, but common experience for each and every one of us. Any one of us who are powerlifting or planning to compete, or in fact just trying to get stronger and get bigger numbers. Okay, so today we're just gonna talk about that, and how it's gonna be like is we're gonna discuss the topic individually one by one, and then we'll come together and talk about and share our same experiences and etc. So we have come we have planned different strategies and our approach to overcoming anxiety and fixing and fighting against this problem. So here it goes. Okay, so once again, the question is how to overcome anxiety and overthinking in training. So, what is anxiety? So, anxiety is actually, to me, like a persistent worry and fear. They are actually quite difficult to control when they come because they don't even you don't even know you're experiencing it until you realize that, oh shit, I'm having this. And then sometimes when we have anxiety, what we do is we avoid the problem, or we just don't want to do it or something like that, and then we delay the process of it. Okay, so when I'm designing and planning this presentation, I'm thinking about what are the scenarios I have when I experience this kind of anxiety. So I'm gonna share with you some of them. So I feel the anxiety, especially when I'm doing a weight or a set that I have not done before. So if you guys can relate, this is it. So I'm afraid that so before the set or rep, or even before the training, I'm afraid that I might fail, and I'm afraid that I will not be able to move the weight well. Okay, so it's like, for example, I need to do like a 260 singles today, and I feel that uh, I'm scared. I don't know if I can do it. I might fail. It might move slow. I might grind like a mad dog. And the most worrying thing is that I will be very disappointed with the results. And also the weight, if I did not do it carefully, I might injure myself as well. Okay, so this is one scenario. So what's happening is you are unconsciously worrying about something in the future which has not happened before, which is quite weird, right? If you think about it, like you have not done a weight this weight, but you're worrying about the future, worrying about something that you have not actually do it. Okay, so the next scenario is so imagine this: I'm training, and then suddenly I felt off in my training. So I'm wondering what's wrong. Did I do something different? Am I weak? So I'm thinking about, so when I don't feel right in training, the most direct thing I will do is I will think about my previous training. For example, for squats today, my squat felt different and felt weird, felt slow. And then I'll start to think about my training a few days back. Why was it so great? What is the difference, etc., etc. So at this point of time, what is actually happening is I'm thinking about the past, like what was going on in the past, rather than thinking about present, like in what situation am I right now in here, and what can I do to help improve the situation or understand why am I feeling that way. Okay, so given these two scenarios and examples, which I feel that most people can relate, most people felt that way as well and think that way. So the thing is, anxiety causes you to go into, to me, like, go into a different uh, time where in the first example, I mentioned that I'm thinking about the future, whereas and the second one is I'm thinking about the past. So why not think about the present? Because I feel that anxiety, when it hits you, it's causing you to lose track of what you need to do presently, like what you need to do at this point of time. So instead of being like thinking when so the strategy I always use when I have this anxiety and when I realize that, oh shit, I'm having this anxiety, is always focus on what I can do now. So this is what I can do in the present time. Okay. So you're gonna do whatever you can. So what I do is I will do whatever I can to control what I can do exactly now in the period of time when you're about to lift a heavy set, for example. Okay. So when I'm approaching the bar or before I'm doing the set, I will focus on what I need to, how I need to move. I focus on my cues. I reevaluate my cues. Think about the cues that I always used. Okay, and then do my usual pre-rep ritual. So if you guys have trained with me before in Elevate Barbell Club, uh, when before I do my top set or heavy set, I will always just stay in one corner and kind of close my eyes, go into some sort of trance, turn on some big loud music, and then go for it. So this is what I can do presently to do. Okay, so you don't care about how the turnout and outcome will be. You're just gonna care about how you're gonna execute it right at this moment, because whatever you do, then you can reflect on the rep later and think about and plan for the next step, like how you're gonna go about doing it, the next few sets, etc., etc. So always take one step at a time. So bottom line is, if you meet and you feel that you are having this anxiety, always think about what you can do now. The present is the most important thing. Okay, so the biggest takeaway is this. All right, so this is a photo of me with JJ. JJ was my handler back at Wolves. Adam is actually trying to lose out all the last 0.5 kg and chewing gums and, you know, keeping himself in a sauna and torturing himself to make weight. It was quite a good experience. And what I'm trying to tell you guys is this quote. So those who control the present control the past, and those who control the past control the future. It's by George Orwell from the book 1984. If you guys have not read it, please go and read it, because it's a very good book. So he said we must control the present so that we can control the past. Because if we actually control the present and we just do and execute what we need to do and think about what we need to do, then it will become the past, and that's where you control it. And then lastly, those who control the past control the future, because once you have done the rep or the set, then you know what's the outcome, the realistic outcome. When you have the realistic outcome, then you can plan for what you're gonna do next. So this is how I approach anxiety all the time. It's kind of subconscious for me, which makes me have a little bit of struggle when I'm planning for this presentation. But when I came about doing it, then I realized that, hey, it's actually quite interesting, because I'm actually, when I'm experiencing anxiety, I'm just thinking about the future and then the past. Whereas whereas I'm not even caring about the present. So it's quite interesting when you're in this mode, wasting time thinking about stuff that have not happened before, or stuff that had happened and you have no control over. Yep, so this is my presentation, and I hope that it can inspire and you guys can relate in training as well. And I mean, if you guys met such problems and situations, always remember Clinton had said, think about the present and stop living in the past, or think that you are you can time travel into the future. All right, so that's my presentation, and I'm gonna pass it on to JJ.
Sick. All right, man. So thanks, Clinton, for that sharing. So I think the quote that you ended on kind of like segues quite nicely into what I want to talk about, which is in my own presentation. And we're discussing overcoming training anxiety and overthinking. So this is something that I'm also quite um, I'm quite guilty of. So it's quite nice because the quote that you ended on kind of also also kind of moves into the quote that I'm opening on, which is if you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. And if you are at peace, you are living in the moment. So this quote is basically just saying, just talking about basically quite similar things. Like if you are worrying about training and stuff, is you will be you'll be someone who's like saying, like the most common things that you hear would be like, oh, I used to do this number for reps, and then suddenly my performance today is like I cannot even do it for. I do it for a really really hard single. So this is an example of a lifter living in the past. So you're using your past data to kind of expect or to kind of um, shape the expectation of what you should be able to do today, which is not always accurate, because if you think about all the different factors that may affect your performance, these are um, it's not a consistent thing, it's not a linear thing, it's not things that you can it's not, and it's also not always things that you can control as well. Whereas on the other hand, if you are anxious, which is like if you have anxiety about your training, it means that you're probably trying to predict something in the future, and you're trying to say that, okay, maybe in 4 weeks time I should be able to do this weight for like 5 reps when I can only do it for 1 rep now. So these are things that you in the same way you have no control of, because you can't really predict the outcome of what's going to happen in 5 weeks. Who's to say, like for example, I had a very good training block before the lockdown, and like if I were to say, oh, in 5 weeks time I'm going to hit the numbers I hit for multiple sets and uh, multiple reps, then the lockdown comes, is like, what was the point of all that stressing and all of that planning and all of that hoping and anxiety and sleepless nights, when actually no one can even train. So it's an example of how you actually don't really have a lot of control about many aspects of your life, not just in training, and that can all add into the stress that you are experiencing in your own life. Yeah, so the best thing you can do, especially in regards to training, is kind of just live in the moment. Like take each. I think this one thing that one of my very early close friends used to tell me, and I regard him as a mentor of just in my life. He's just used to say that you look at your programs and you see multiple sets and multiple reps and at a challenging weight, right? And when you get under the bar, right, the most important thing is actually not to really think about the whole set. It's really just do each rep as a single, and take each rep as it comes, and do each set as you are required to. So this is how, when you're thinking, okay, I have such a huge like say you have sets of eights for multiple for multiple sets, you're going to think, oh, I have to do eights, but you don't really you shouldn't really think about that, because even within a set you have no control over the eighth set versus the first set. You have to do each rep as you have to do each rep as it comes, and you also have to focus on doing each rep as without that focus, so there are many things that can go wrong, and then when you lose that focus, you just allow each of the reps to just become worse and worse and compound on it, and then that in itself will lead to a negative outcome, which will impact the way you feel. So my perspective on this is, whenever you feel the urge to think or to live in the past or think about the future, it is mostly because you're having an emotional response to the outcomes of your training. So what I mean by that is basically when you are not being able, because you have no data about you have no reliable data about the future, and also you don't have control of what's already passed. You don't have something that you can rationally rely on and objectively rely on to to kind of shape your expectation of what's happening at the moment. So in that sense, then you have that emotional response, which is not really rational or not necessarily the most reasoned observation of your sort of training variables. And sometimes this can actually cloud your judgment of what is making your training good or bad. And because you are in that sort of emotional moment of it, you just tend to want to react immediately. But I think one of the most helpful things is actually when something happens, is to actually give yourself the time and space to be emotional about it. To just like, okay, so and set up good boundaries for yourself. So say for example, when I used to get injured, what I would tell myself is, okay, I give myself I give myself today, right? Today, 24 hours to just sulk and be emo and be sad about things, right? And then once the 24 hours is done, um, I'm not going to think about it anymore because I cannot control the fact that something has already happened in my training. What I can control is I can look at how I can, what are the steps that I can take to get better. And then when I actually go and do those things, I need to actually do them with a lot of intention and with a lot of care and with a lot of focus, which should be me living in a moment of doing my rehab or doing whatever I need to do, right? And in that sense, you don't also say that, okay, don't give yourself a timeline that says, okay, if I do all these things, I will be in 2 weeks I will feel better, because that is also about you trying to predict the future, which you have also no control of. So it's like you have to do things, you have to take things uh, as they come, and you have to be able to say that, okay, if I just do these things, the outcomes will lead me to a positive outcome. Okay. So with regards to overthinking, I like to use I think recently what I've been trying to, even in my own lifting and even in my own coaching and even in my own training, I think something that I've been trying to think about is to use Occam's razor. And Occam's razor is basically the kind of logical tool, which is basically mirror. It's basically the law of parsimony, which says that, okay, so entities should not be multiplied without necessity. And when you, for example, when you have, say for example, you are deadlifting and you injured your glute, right? So when you think about it, you can basically find as many reasons as you want to think about why you injured your glute uh, and how to prevent it, right? But since the reasons are infinite, you can always say that, oh, last night I had a fight I had argument with one of my family members, and because of that I was very stressed and my body was very tense, and then today I deadlifted. Like, or you can even do the ridiculous thing and say like, oh, I think the moon was a bit out of place today compared to like the rest of the earth, and like the spin of the earth caused gravity to be heavier. Like you can even say that, or the t-shirt that I'm wearing is not is bad luck, right? And because of that I injured myself. Right, and most of these things you can actually say, like there's no wrong way to kind of prove it or disprove it. And although it might sound ridiculous, I mean, this is one of the ways that you can look at the own flaws of your own logic, and this is why we use sort of this Occam's razor to approach looking at our own training variables, so that we can remain as uh, as objective as possible, but objective in the sense that we want to use the reason with the least assumptions of things. So for example, say for example, going back to the example, if I injure myself, maybe one of the things is, well, maybe the simplest reason is that I'm just fatigued and I haven't been recovering well, and that is the maybe the just the simplest answer to your solution. And so then you can just look at, okay, what can I do to help me recover better? Maybe tonight I sleep a bit better. I put my calories up a bit so that I have a bit more resources to recover from. And maybe I eat more. I try to take care of my micronutrition. So like get my vitamins and minerals in and stuff so that I can actually put my body in the best place to recover. And that having that sort of like simplicity of approaching a problem will allow you to actually take better steps than say, okay, like the moon is out of place. But I can't really do anything about the moon being out of place, right? I can't really do anything about like, or a solar eclipse is happening. Like those are things that are beyond your control. Sure, maybe some people may believe that it affects them, but then there is nothing that you can actually do, right? And also one of the things that I think really can cloud our judgments is this idea that hindsight is always perfect, but in the end humans are not perfect creatures. So when you look back at your training, you can always say, oh shit, I did this wrong and I did that wrong and I did all of this. But actually before you did the set, you didn't realize that you didn't know that these things are necessarily right or wrong. Just did it, and then you the outcome is as such. You really had no control of it. So if you always think about, okay, like you always think back, you can always find a rational or somewhat rational answer for why, to validate what happened, which might not necessarily be the case. So in that sense, it's not necessarily the most helpful thing to look back and think about the infinite reasons where it could be wrong. And the reason I use this is because when we want to observe our own training, we will tend to be biased towards certain reasons and certain expectations of our training. And so this is why I said I put this quote in, like all models are wrong, some are helpful, by George Box. So the idea behind this is that whatever model and whatever biases you have towards looking at your training variables, you might think that your model is actually perfect or good in explaining why things happen. But actually sometimes your model can be the reason why you don't see certain flaws in your own logic, right? So you need to, even within your own model, you need to choose what are the assumptions and what are the reasons why they can be applied to this situation and this context to be helpful in generating the actions that need to be taken in moving forward. Because at the end of the day, overthinking happens because we are thinking. The fact that we are thinking too much and doing too much. But at the end, thinking too much, not doing too much. But at the end, what will make the difference is actually going out to lift the weight and actually going out to actually execute on the things that you have planned out for yourself. So if you have all these, if you have very complex or you have very, very far-fetched ideas of why your training went badly, then you will have very complex things to execute on. And complex things are not all, and complexity is the enemy of execution. So when you want to do something, you need to make it so that it's actually something that you can do and is doable and is practical, right? Yeah. So think about it this way. Don't think about what is right or wrong, but think about what is helpful in that situation, and don't feel like just because it is helpful that it will necessarily lead you to a positive outcome. But if you don't take that first step in the first place, then the outcome will definitely not be what you want. Yeah, so this is I hope this is something that is helpful in helping you shape the way that you think about overthinking and looking at your training variables and how you can logically go about uh, applying it to your own analysis of your training, and hopefully that will help to allay some of the anxieties and fears about training and not make you overthink.
Thanks, Clinton and JJ. So, first of all, I'd like to share my experience with anxiety and how I've overcome it in regards to like heavy lifting training and heavy lifting competition. So, for a while, for a couple of competitions, I was missing my openers and missing my opening squat. And at that time, I was just focusing so much on the outcome and not focusing on the process. So I was like, oh, I need to make sure I squat deep, and I hope the referees I wonder how strict the referees are going to be, and just focusing all on the outcome and nothing to do with the process. So what I did to help me through that is to implement visualization. So the way I implement visualization is that for example, if I am going to training, usually I catch a bus or I'm in a grab going to training, and then I've got, a heavy top single that day, and I'll be sitting in the grab with my headphones on, and I'll just be sitting there and I'll be visualizing the gym, the environment. And it's, if you're like me and you train in the same gym all the time, you can really make that vivid in your mind, right? So I visualize getting to the gym, I visualize the process of warming up, getting up to the bar, getting under the bar, executing the lift. And that really helps me visualize the process. So to focus on the process. So the way I implement that when coming in towards a competition, instead of me visualizing me executing the lift in the gym, I'll be sitting in the grab or in the bus, and I'll be visualizing what I expect the competition venue is going to look like. I'm going to visualize me standing at the chalk bowl, putting chalk on my hands, feeling the chalk, watching the spotters load the bar, putting the color plates on, putting the collar on, tying up the collar, looking at the referee, telling me bar's loaded. I walk up to the bar. I visualize myself checking the plates on the bar. Then I visualize myself coming up to the bar, and what I usually do before I execute a squat, I put my head against the bar and I tell myself, you own this, you're in control. Get under the bar, I feel the weight, I feel the knurling in my hands. I unrack the bar, I walk it out. I feel in control. I look at the ref. Ref says squat, I squat. Perfectly executed squat. They tell me rack, I rack the bar, 3 white lights. This is what I visualize in the grab. Going to the gym, I make it vivid in my mind. This, by practicing this and rehearsing it in my mind over and over again, and it comes to meet day, it just feels natural. It's just time to execute what I've been visualizing, and this totally distracts me from focusing on the outcome. So so the thing to take away from all this is just to mainly focus on the process and not the outcome. Okay, and I found that that's really helped me with overcoming anxiety in training and in competition. So where I've got all this information from and what helped me is through my coach, Ross. So I'm just going to go over the next page. I'm just going to shout out some content on YouTube that you can go and watch. So the first one is visualizing strategies with powerlifting. Some of the stuff I've said is just what's from here. And if you really want to go and check that out, I recommend checking out visualization for powerlifting. And then the other one is just to, a little bit about mindset as well. And it's in this other YouTube video here. You'll have to scroll about 1 hour in, and Ross talks about mindset for training and then goes through a visualization component as well. Heavily emphasizing the focus on what you can control. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for my presentation. It's pretty short and sweet. And I hope this helps. If you we'll leave the links in the description. You can also find the RTS Seminar 1. It's actually labeled Ross Lepela, Using Your Mind, on Spotify and iTunes. So if you want to go check that out and have a good listen, I actually listen to it at least 2 or 3 times a year just to get a refresher. And I really use that concept from my training as well. So yeah, that's it for me.
All right, very cool. So 1 question and 3 different perspectives. So this is what we deliver at Technique Matters. Anything else to add for you, Adam and JJ?
I think what Adam said is quite is actually quite good, because in terms of like making, like occupying your mind with something that you can do like in the moment will stop you from also reacting negatively or reacting sort of like intuitively to situations. And I think that's something that something that you see high level performance at all levels, they do this idea of the response rather than the reaction. And I also like how Adam talked about his own sort of setup and stuff, because it is a thought out routine for how things are meant to go. And if you see, for example, if you watch say like fighter pilots, or you watch like Navy SEALs and stuff like that, they don't go charging into a battle zone and just start firing their guns and stuff like that. They have a procedure to follow, and they are so trained in that procedure until they don't even have to think about it. They've taken the thinking out of it, and they've allowed themselves to just execute. But the only way to which kind of goes back to what I'm saying, the only way to have something that you can execute is to make it as simple as possible, because in the stress of the moment, you don't want sort of very complex you don't want to have complex reasoning in your head that you actually steal from your ability to produce max output and power and all of these things. I really think Adam's presentation was actually really good. It reminded me of having the benefits of having a routine.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. I give that full credit to my coach for coming up with the concept as well. Like, because I'm
Ross, Ross Lapella from RTS, if you guys want to check him out. Yep.
I find that it's not something that comes to you straight away, visualization. It took me a lot of practice, and after quite a bit of practice, it just started becoming more subconscious as well. It becomes more of a behavior, like you'll see me in training. I set up exactly the same every single time for a lift. I'll stand back, I'll just close my eyes for a second, then open it, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. I've seen this in my mind. It's for me to do it now, and to just focus on that process. It totally eliminates any negativity, and I think that's a big key. I think a lot of people will take away a lot from just visualization, because you're not going to sit there and visualize yourself going, I'm going to miss this lift. I'm going to put too much on the bar and get crushed.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get injured.
I would rather execute the visualization as how Adam has described it, rather than thinking about whether the weight will crush me or fail or not. Like, obviously this is the right approach that I'll rather go for. Think about happy stuff rather than think about how it's gonna turn myself into hell. Yeah.
I think once I started implementing visualization, I stopped missing openers. Like, I stopped, and the biggest anxiety I was getting was going to Worlds as well. Like, the past competitions, I would think about, man, I've spent so much money to get here. I've trained so hard for this. my sleep has been wrecked because, I'm very sensitive to sleep, other side of the world, been trying to adapt. I'm thinking about, the referees seem really strict as well. Like I just seen, Clinton got called for death and it was deep, like in my opinion. And I'm like, oh my God, I better sink mine to the floor then, and then that really starts to play on your mind. And once I started focusing on the process, then it just, I don't care. I've rehearsed this in training so many times. I made sure all my lifts are competition standard, execute them well. And then when it comes to meet day, it's just, I've done this hundreds of times in training. It's for me to just go and do it on that stage over there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So everything, if you want to have a good future, it starts from now. It starts from what you can do now and things that you can control. So be sure to do everything properly. And obviously, I would say that, okay, be sure to do everything as the best as you could, the right way. But obviously, if I say this, most people will start to get anxiety once again. It's like, oh my God, I need to be right all the time, and etc. etc. But once again, it is okay to make mistakes, because for me, I strongly believe in this. If you make mistake, that's the best way to learn. It's only the time where you make the mistake. So obviously in training, if you make mistakes, it's fine, because you can learn and adapt from it. It's a process that you have to go through during this powerlifting journey, leading up to an objective. So if your objective is competition, we try to keep that mistake as minimal as possible by doing what we can do now, by doing it like visualization from what Adam has said, and executing and basically enjoying and live in the moment, like what JJ has mentioned. Yes.
Yeah, and also the idea of mistakes being like mistakes are not the end of the day. So think about it this way: if you have like $100 in like you want to save like $100 every month in your bank account, right? And then 1 month you didn't save like 100, you save maybe 80, right? And you spend $20 more that month. So are you just going to not even save the 80 in the first place and just spend the whole $100? Like, yes, you did go over your expectations slightly, but it doesn't mean that the rest of your work isn't good enough quality. And right, you should look at, okay, I'm not going to feel negative about one rep out of the 40 good ones that I did in training today, right? So you need to think about, you need to weigh out, okay, why am I letting one rep out of like 20 reps ruin my experience and ruin like how I approach my training, right? It's not asking you to be overly positive about everything. It's just like knowing, okay, where you can be better, and not using that, like I said, using that as a rational response rather than an emotional response to things. Yeah, and of course it's hard, and it takes but just like maybe squatting or benching or deadlifting is hard for some people, right? You get better by doing reps. You get better by the more you practice it. So every time you feel like, oh, why am I so, I've made a mistake, right? Don't think about it as a mistake. Think about it, I'm getting better, and I'm ironing out all the little bits, and I'm helping, and I'm doing my mental rep work as well, and not just my squats or my bench or my deadlift. It's also about having practicing the mentality, and you get better at everything that you practice.
Yeah, it's a skill. Like overcoming anxiety is actually a skill as well. Like obviously, especially for me and Adam, we don't just like we don't just perform all the time at Worlds. And I mean, our first experience at Worlds, we must be very, very excited, as well as feeling a lot of anxiety. So it took a lot of experience for us, a lot of failures, for us to come out and surface into a better side of the world. Yeah, so it is okay to make mistakes, because there's always another chance to do it better. And it's only when you make mistakes then you have a better chance to be better, to be honest. Like if you force yourself to do everything perfectly, it is very hard on yourself, and that's where your mind will start to go haywire, and then you will start to go crazy again. So at all times, powerlifting, in my opinion, to be honest, like I have to keep everything cool. Like no extreme ends of the spectrum. Don't be too crazy about a set. Um, Sometimes I really do want to do the rep that I wish to do. For example, I wish to do 280 kg squat in competition. I mean, that is what I really want. But if I cannot do it, it's fine. You don't have to, blame yourself for it or anything like that, because it's not healthy in the mind, and that will not help to solve the problem in improving your powerlifting career.
One thing that's helped me as well is self-affirmation. And you can seem pretty silly doing it, but as I said, when I visualize the lift, and you guys see me in training, I put my head up against the bar and I say something. And with me just saying it, it builds confidence in me. Like I feel more confident, and it kind of echoes in my head, and it just reminds me what I need to do. I need to be in control. I need to be in control. I've got to own this. I'm not going to let the bar be in control of me. It's me. I'm in control. And then I'm just focusing on just the process. So I really think for me, self-affirmation really works. I always say something before a big lift in competition as well. I'll walk up, stare at the bar, and I say something to myself, and then I go. And I find that just really helps.
Yeah, that pre-rep ritual, right?
Yeah.
And I also think this is just Adam saying that just reminded me of something, which is it's kind of something that maybe I do myself as well, but something that I've grown to be a bit more annoyed with, which is when you see lifters on Instagram, or like people post their meet reviews, or they post their training footage and they say, "Oh, I'm just trash." It's like, yeah, because you keep saying you're trash, obviously you're going to feel negatively about your training. It's like, and then you go there and see they're like, oh, they especially see competition results. You see, oh, I hit this PB, but it's way under what I expected. It's like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? You are literally like, in the whole span of your powerlifting career, hitting a PB means that you are the best. You have been this is the best you that you've ever been in your whole life, right? This is the most weight you've ever lifted, but you decide to let some idea of who you're meant to be kind of spoil the positive of the situation. And like, the more you say it, right, like I said, the more you say that you're trash, right, the more you actually kind of like internalize that idea that you really are bad at something, right? So I even for myself, I try to be very careful with the words that I use, because when I do train, when I was training, I post my training quite frequently. So even in my own captions and stuff, I try to avoid that spiraling into that sort of negative talk. Not just for the people who follow me, but just for myself, because I realize that sometimes when I say, oh, like I have a bad training session, I will actually kind of like edit the caption, because I think that it's not that I don't want to admit that it's a bad training session or a bad competition or whatever, but it's more about understanding that, okay, like the more I say that I'm bad, right, the more I will feel bad, and the more that I will do badly. It's about actually affirming yourself that, okay, no matter what happens, I've done the best that I can, and maybe I did get it wrong, but at the same time, if I keep telling myself that I'm wrong, which I will admit is I think it's a very common thing in Asian culture. Like we're always like, oh, we're not good enough. But actually, sometimes you just need to understand that, like, you are actually the best that you've ever been in your life. But there are things that you can definitely do better. Like, nobody is perfect, but it is. But wanting to be perfect is not wrong, but wanting to be perfect at the expense of how you actually perceive the work and the value of what you're doing, and letting that rob the positives of it, is not exactly very healthy as well.
Yeah, I feel that the unhealthiest thing, right, was when you think you are trash, and then I don't know, and I cannot imagine myself telling that I'm trash. But that's not the worst thing. The worst thing is you are influencing people and putting on social media that saying you are trash. So what are you implying? You want people to call you trash, or do you want to attract some attention and some guys telling you, hey, you're not trash, you're actually very good. You just need some self-validation, which is quite toxic. And I mean, I don't want this session to be a roasting session, but once again, I want to point out that like this sport is a very mental sport. If you want to do well and excel in it, you need to maintain a very positive mindset.
I think you're right there. I think it can be very toxic, and especially if you're a high level lifter and you say you're trash, and you've got younger lifters looking up to you, it spreads, and you'll have younger lifters telling themselves that they're trash, you know. And then also another thing, if you got people around you surrounded by you, and you didn't do something quite all right, and then you got people around you saying that was trash, that was crap, when no, I've seen it before. The people, coaches, then go, no, that was rubbish, and it's like you're just enforcing a negative mindset to your athlete. You're not saying that, that you did this right, but you need to do this better. And I think if you've got people like that around you, I think you need to get rid of them. I think you need to change your environment, change gyms, change coach. And, that's my opinion though. If you like being talked to like that, then go for it. But yeah, I think the environment plays a big part as well in a positive mindset too. So you got to have supportive people around you.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so happy with, the people that surround me. And you see in my first picture that I presented that these three people are heavily influenced in my powerlifting career. They force me to be better, and they're not yes men either. If they go, no, that I don't agree with that, or that needs to be better, they'll tell me. They're not going to say this is good, even though it was suboptimal or whatever. So I make sure that the people I'm around are there to force me to be better at what I am, the sport, and just to be the best of I can ever be. So I think environment plays a big factor.
You know what? You have to find the right influence, and the right influencers are actually staring right at you in front of the screen right now. So obviously, if you have any questions or you're in doubt, we are not psychiatrists, we are not psychologists, but we can relate with you, and we can tell you share our experiences with you personally. So you can always message us on Instagram individually or on Technique Matters, and we can always help you improve your mental health in the sport. Like this topic in terms of mental aspect of powerlifting has not been really researched and covered on. As much as we are trying to do it, it's not perfect, but hey, you know what? Just as what this video is about, it is okay to make mistakes. It is okay to screw up, but we are doing our best we can to improve each and every time we make these videos. All right.
And it's cool to talk about too. Just talk about it.
Yeah, it's nice to have some interaction about this topic, because most of the time when we feel anxiety, we always feel alone, and we are too shy to tell people. Like when you're, because like I see a lot of people in the gym, when they are approaching a weight they are scared of, they will usually be alone, sweating like mad and whatever. Whereas for me, maybe because I own my own gym, so when I'm facing this anxiety, I will start talking to people like, shit, I'm damn scared. Scary, yeah. Something like that. Yeah, but it was just like it's just a moment for me to realize that, oh shit, I'm in anxiety and time to loosen up and actually be more lively and approach it the right way, living in the present and really focus on what I need to do. So yeah, always find the right influence. Look at the environment you are training at. If the environment doesn't suit and doesn't lead you to improving in your sport, both physically and mentally, maybe you need to find a different place. And obviously, you always need a mentor and a coach to help you in this journey, unless you are a superhuman who can do it alone.
Mm.
If not, we'll end this video right here. If you find this content useful, please give it a like and share to those people who are who needs them. And once again, we will see you next time, and be sure to subscribe and follow our IG Technique Matters. Till then, we'll see you. Goodbye.